welcome to Minnesota Home Ownership Center's Welcome Home podcast. My name is Bill Gray, and today we're going to look into an issue colloquially called missing middle housing. Joining me today is Mark Foster, Vice President of Legislative and Political Affairs for Housing First Minnesota. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, so first, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what it does?
Yeah, thanks, Bill, and thanks to the Home Ownership Center for having me here today. So, Housing First Minnesota, we're a trade association of home builders, remodelers, and the trade partners of those home builders, and roughly 1,000 members across the state of Minnesota. And we're laser focused on our mission of creating home ownership opportunities for all Minnesotans. So, like I said, we build all across the state, tens of thousands of units of housing each year, mainly in the single family, condo, townhome type product, not as much on the multifamily side, but that's who we are.
Oh, very cool. So we cross paths a lot, as you know, and let's see. I want to understand this missing middle term a little bit better, and you may even tell me that that's not necessarily a term that we use. I mean, what does this all mean?
Yeah, happy to elaborate a little bit more on that. Missing middles, it's a term used across the country, really across the world, to talk about a different type of housing, typically smaller housing, duplexes, triplexes, quads, that type of housing. Also, I would say it can bring in smaller single family homes as well as an option. But when we talk housing, we like to talk about all products of housing when we're talking about Minnesota's housing shortage, which is roughly 100,000 units short of a healthy housing market across the state. And about 75,000 of that shortage is here in the Twin Cities MSA metro area. And so when we talk about addressing that shortage via missing middle opportunities, creating more housing units, we talk about a little bit of everything. Yes, single family homes, but also the duplexes, quads, tris, multifamily homes, condos. We don't build as many condos in Minnesota as we would otherwise like to. So it's addressing the whole housing spectrum.
Okay. So one of the things that we like to put out there as an option for folks when they're looking into home ownership is the idea of owner-occupant landlord housing, right? So maybe someone can buy a duplex, live in one side of it, and rent the other side out, and basically, get their mortgage paid for that way, or at least help pay for that. Well, this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, in part, that's one option for folks, and that's really what the Yes to Homes Coalition, which I think you'll want to get into a little bit more here in a bit, but that's what we're geared towards, is having options for renters and for home buyers and for all Minnesotans throughout the life cycle. Right, we all rent really at certain stages of life, whether it's fresh out of college or in between jobs or moving cities, or you just got divorced or whatever it may be. Most of us aspire to own at some point in our lives as well. Sometimes we want to have flexibility to have intergenerational opportunities within the same property. So having a single family house with an ADU either downstairs or out in the backyard for your mother, or I don't know if you want your mother-in-law next to you or not, but just having those options for folks, like I said, in whatever stage of life they are.
Yeah. So this is how I'm understanding this. Check my logic. So we kind of look at the housing as a continuum, all the way from apartments to McMansions, for lack of a better term, right? And it seems to me like the missing middle is when you make the jump from apartment to home ownership, there's not enough of this starter stock almost, right? For starter homes, or these duplexes, triplexes, where you could be an owner landlord. you live in the house and you rent out the other units. And a lot of the reasons for this, for these things not being built is zoning. Is that right? Is that what we're talking
Well,
about?
so yeah, just back to the
Hmm.
term missing middle itself,
Hmm.
right? You think of, so you, like you said, a spectrum of housing, single family homes on one end, large multifamily on the other.
Hmm.
Everything else is kind of in between, and it's largely missing in the creation of that new product. We built a lot of that type of product. Think of many parts of Minneapolis, many
Yeah.
parts of St. Paul, decades and generations ago, but we don't build as much of that product as the market would otherwise prefer to, because we know there's a demand there. And in large part, it has to do with the zoning and land use laws of a generation ago. And so that's what the Yes to Homes Coalition, of which we're a member of, is trying to advance, both in city halls, but also especially at the state legislature, because housing's a statewide issue.
Right, right. So if we were talking a little bit about this before we came on. If you're trying to change the zoning laws, you can chase 100 different cities, or you can chase a change at the state level. That's what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of local governments within the state, thousands of them. So
Yeah.
that's why we believe the state legislature and the governor
Hmm.
need to view housing policy as a holistic approach for the whole state.
Hmm.
And there's been some city governments across the state and across the country that have made measurable strides to relax some
Hmm.
of their more cumbersome regulations and housing policies to try to accommodate for new housing construction. Bloomington, Minneapolis, St. Paul are three of the big ones within the MSA here in the state. Rochester, if you're looking for a greater
Yeah.
Minnesota example, and all of those have had mixed policy changes and then ultimately mixed results as well.
Any of them kind of pulling it off better than the others?
I'd say that the city of Bloomington and their approach opened up more opportunities. They're still only a couple years past
Right.
that. They're still having I believe they're looking to make more strides here in the coming months and a year or so as well. So just having the discussion broadly helps to invite input from existing neighbors, but then also those that want to live in a community as well.
Right, right. Okay. So we've kind of talked about single family, maybe these duplex, triplex, um, condos, and townhomes come to mind. I don't know how those might play into this discussion
Mhm.
as well. Can you
Well,
enlighten me?
yeah, condos and townhomes are, they're a great first ownership opportunity. A lot of people start buying either a condo or a townhouse,
Mhm.
and so that's what we view as maybe a starter home. So they definitely play a role. There are some condo, like I mentioned at the onset, there's some condo liability issues within the state of Minnesota as to why we don't build as much of that product as we do. But we
Mhm.
built a lot of townhomes in Minnesota, and so that's a good product.
Tell me the quick difference between townhouse and condo again. I'm blanking. I know I knew this at one point.
Well, yeah, it's all has to do with the structure makeup. Townhomes you typically see, I'd say,
Yeah.
more side by side. Condos maybe a little larger high rise from time to time.
Okay, so a much bigger kind of almost co-op-y thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that is definitely helpful. So when you go to the state, I'm assuming next year, what are your plans? How has this issue been received? Because I know you guys have been chasing this for a couple of years.
Hmm.
How do you think? Give
Yeah.
us some thoughts on how you think things are going to go.
So yeah, as a VP of Legislative Affairs for Housing Minnesota, Housing First Minnesota, and I've been around for about a decade with that group. We've had a lot of different issues, labor, environmental, business related issues, but the zoning and land use coalition with the Yes to Homes coalition has been the most exciting one that I've ever worked on, just because of the crossover with organizations across the political spectrum. Look at many of these groups. We may not agree on 9 out of 10 issues, but zoning and land use and housing policy reform is the one we're in lockstep together. So that's cool. So it's really a coalition that's ever growing, and it has been over the past 2 years. Has really been where this group has been united. And it, like I said, it goes from labor groups to business groups to nonprofits to just policy advocates that are passionate about the issue. So that's the exciting piece. And then the other exciting piece, especially in today's environment with a very split legislature, is the bipartisan crossover, where you have Republican champions, you have Democrat champions that are passionate about this issue until we really get some serious progress. Because the housing shortage that I mentioned, the 100,000, that's not going away anytime soon, and it's not going to go away without significant policy reform.
So that kind of came about in the wake of the financial crisis, right? The housing bubble.
Exactly. Yeah. When we had the great housing recession, really from I don't know 07, 08 to 10, 11. We just stopped building for almost a decade. From 2010 to 2020, it was the smallest amount of new construction coming online in 50, 60 years. All the while, we still had household formation, household growth. We have, smaller households than typical. Or than generations prior, I should say. But you have a lot of single people. You have a lot of married couples without kids. So the housing product line doesn't match maybe what we needed a generation ago.
So it needs to be more nimble and switch back and forth. So let's talk. I want to understand specifically, and for our viewers and listeners too, some of these zoning changes. Things that I have heard are around lot size and around, I think you mentioned garage size, 2-car, 3-car. The things that you're trying to push for change. Give me a couple examples of what and why. Like if you were able to change lot size, what would that mean? If you were able to change a garage requirement, what would that mean? Just like walk us through it so that I can understand why this makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Lot size is a big price point when you're trying to build a house. You think about everything that goes into it, from the cost of the materials to the labor. But the lot, especially here in the MSP area, land is very expensive. One of the most expensive in the Midwest, really one of the most expensive in the country. So addressing just having the flexibility to build on a smaller lot that, like we used to, like I said, think of parts of Minneapolis, St. Paul. St. Louis Park is a great example of just driving through what we would have considered a generation ago starter home developments. And so you can find a lot of cost savings for homeowners by trimming the lot down to, say, 5,000 square feet, which we think is a modest approach. There's parts of Texas that allow you to build on 1,500, 2,000 square feet. So we think that's a modest change. Also, unfortunately, some of the roadblocks that we run into in growing suburbs primarily are the additional requirements on home builders and ultimately home buyers in terms of either we call them beauty contest requirements. So they want the house to look a certain way. And so some of it's stone upgrades, which can have a cost of $5,000 to $20,000 if you do it on all 4 sides of the house. There's also multiple municipalities throughout the state that require 3-car garages instead of just your typical 2-car. All of that stuff is great, but not everybody in Minnesota, not every Minnesotan at certain stages of life can afford those upgrades right out of the gate. And so we're saying, let's provide products that we know there's a demand for, especially first-time home buyers. Bill, yesterday, and I brought it with me today, the National Association of Realtors released some of their data for the past year. And we thought it was bad last year. We were citing the first-time homebuyer median age nationally had gone up to 38. Well, this past year, it's gone up to 40.
Yeah.
And that's a red alarm for us as an organization,
Right.
that has real concerns about our housing market when the median first-time home buyer is not buying a house till 40. You're
Yeah.
missing out on equity gains for when it used to be late 20s. You're missing
Right.
out on equity gain for a decade. You're missing out on probably family formation. All of that stuff
Well,
has
and
real consequences.
it's the number one way people build wealth in the United States. And so if it's not as accessible as it should be, then as it could be, then it's a disservice to however this economy is supposed to work. So good, thanks for that. Let's see. I don't. There's a lot swimming around in this head of mine. What other things should we cover here to make sure that we kind of cover all the bases on why this is important?
Yeah, like I said, this group, this Yes to Homes Coalition, we're focused on just opening up opportunities across the state. And we've been around for a couple of years. Like I said, it's starting to grow. You can feel the momentum. We have some true legislative champions. We're always open to more as well. But then also, just putting it on cities across the state to look internally at their own policies, because some of these, like I said, mentioned Bloomington, Rochester, St. Paul, Minneapolis, they have already taken these steps. So many of these cities can take the steps. We need the state to do it though, because like I said, it's housing in Minnesota it's really a regional approach.
Right.
If you live in I live out east, if you live in White Bear, well, maybe you want to move to one part of Matamidi. So it does have an impact, and it has a real impact for future generations. Housing affordability, housing costs, housing opportunities continues to grow as a top issue especially for younger generations, but for next year's an election year, it's a big issue for voters as well.
Right. I mean, to me, you have to have the stock that is needed and that the market needs, if you can't build specific things, then you're missing that group of people where they are in their economic lives that need that to get their first foot on the ladder rung.
Yeah.
So
like you said, this matters for renters, matters for those that are trying to get into their first house, and matters for aging boomers that are trying to downsize and find move from their 4 or 5 bedroom house and find a more comfortable villa. But the housing churn it's coming to a freeze. People are staying in their house longer than ever before, and that's not necessarily a good thing, because you need some churn within the market. You need people moving from time to time.
Well, and another facet of that is the interest rates.
Exactly.
I know we refinanced in 2019, so I've got an interest rate that I do not want to get rid of. So I can see all of that. Well, this has been a great discussion. I appreciate you coming in. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great info, great conversation, and let's call it a wrap. So in closing, I want to acknowledge our sponsors: Associated Bank, Bell Bank, Bremer Bank, Country Financial, Franzen Bank and Trust, Huntington Bank, Midwest One Bank, and Old National Bank. Our sincere thanks to each of these organizations for their support. Thanks for watching and listening.